Hey folks, Ryan here, Mr. Rouse Gaming Rants and Reviews, and I've got a good old review for you today where I'm going to be taking a look at a little game called Meeples and Monsters, designed by Ole Stieness and published by AEG Games. Let's get those bags building because we are out trying to find and accumulate a force of nature where we're going to be recruiting knights, more peasants, warriors, mages, clerics, because there is an onslaught of monsters attacking our good old town. And you know what? If we can, defeat the most monsters, gain the most victory points, the king is going to reward us by being the new, town warden and get that extra claim to fame. So join me at the table. I'm going to show you what's inside the box and how to play Meeples and Monsters. Well, okay, here I have a copy of Meeples and Monsters by AEG here. Now, for the purposes of this review, I am going to be taking a look at a copy of the retail edition of Meeples and Monsters. There is a Kickstarter kind of more deluxe edition that is out there, but I only managed to get my hands on a copy of the retail version, so that's what I'm going to be taking a look at today. So let's take a look at what's going on inside the box here. So we've got our rule book, which is the nice full box sized rule book. And you know what, going through this thing, it's okay. I've seen better rule books, but I have definitely seen worse rule books. So this one kind of fits right there in the middle here. Laying out all of our components and whatnots. Everything. Nice big old wall of text to set this game up. Now, this may seem like there's a lot of things going on to set up this game, but it actually doesn't take a whole lot. Actually, the toughest part about the setup actually is constructing the deck of monster cards. Is actually the only thing that actually requires a little bit of effort and work. Other than that, everything else sets up really actually smoothly and easily there. Going through the turn sequence, and again, there's a lot of text going on here to describe what's kind of going on. But again, the flow of the game, hopefully you'll get it in the second part of this, the next part about this video. The gameplay is actually fairly smooth. There's a lot more text here than I think they went a little overboard. They really made sure that they kind of cut down on the edge cases on anything, but made sure it was really clear on what is going on. Again, here we go, combat with monsters, lots of text going on describing every single little piece of detail. There is a ton of text to kind of get through. This may seem quite scary to a lot of folks, but it does actually make sense. It's actually a fairly easy read, and actually going through it, there's going to be no questions of what you actually end up having to do if you can get through reading this actual rule book. And then then the last phase is your drawing back up phase, which again is a nice big old wall of text. Again, there's not hopefully in the next part of this video outlines exactly what we need to do, and outlining quests, the ending of the game, some frequently asked questions that must have came up through play testing and whatnot that make sure that it made it into the rule book. And then probably the most handy thing that you want to keep out at the table, because there aren't any reference cards available or released with this game, but there's all the icons and what they kind of mean and what they represent, which we did find ourselves sometimes referring back to every now and then. And so this is a really nice thing to have real handy. So overall, a pretty decent rule book. I've seen better, but I've definitely seen worse. All right, I'll put that off to the side here. Let's take a look at what's inside this box. So we've got all of our player boards, okay, for all of the different colors here, and they all look very similar and the same here. They are your taverns and your lodgings for anything, so this is the red player, the Meeples and Mustards, and these are just kind of like the places to kind of represent. These are your characters that you're going to be recruiting throughout the particular game. And these are all your level 1s, and they can all be upgraded eventually, kind of sliding a card on top of here, just kind of upgrade your characters. And of course, there's the colored of Meeple, if you couldn't tell from the background, and their combat values. And all the players have one of these. There's the red player. Here's the green player, the Sir Douglas Fir. And then there's the purple player, the Eldon Flower. And we've got the blue player, which is the Lumber Inn. Okay. And then we've got our point tracker and our, now what do they call these folks again? These are probably like the overbosses, the big bads that you're going to eventually fight at the very end of the game here. And of course, this is your point tracker that's going to go around here. They didn't include a 50+ marker, and believe me, all of our games we've scored more than 50 points along this one. So that was actually kind of a neat thing, that we know that you can score more than 50 points, but they didn't give you a little marker that kind of dictate that you can get more than 50 points. Okay, I'm going to kind of slide all of those over to the side here. We'll take a look at the game. Well, let's take a look at the game board right now. Just kind of shove everything off to the side. So the game board is okay, and kind of this quad fold. How am I doing this here? There we go. Oh, I got it upside down too. Jeez. Of course. First try. There we go. Really like the vibrant colors and the vibrant artwork here. Everything's very outlined very nicely. There's our 4 central spaces of our 4 central actions that are available right at the start of the game. Here are all the slots for where all the monsters are going to be attacking. And then, of course, these are the spots, the ones that say for rent, are going to be the places that you can build new buildings over. And then we've got the 4 spots in the corners here for the Towers expansion that does not come with the retail edition, but you can go on to AEG's website and purchase that as a little add-on. If you did not get in on the Kickstarter version, you can get the little Towers expansion. Then there's some tiles that will go into those spaces there. And yeah, that's the game board. It's actually really, really nice. It's very, very quite vibrant. No complaints about that, and it's not overly large either. It's actually a really nice, decent size for this style of game. Okay, let's take a look at what's back inside the box here. We've got our nicely embroidered bags that you're going to put your meeples into, and these are what you're going to be drawing out of. So we got the blue, and we've got the purple, and we got the green player, and the red player, and these are very nice bags, very nice and large that you can put your hands into. Okay, this is kind of like how I have my copy organized currently. I've got all of the common villager meeples all in one bag because I want to keep them separately because not too many of them get added throughout the course of the game. We've got the gray corruption meeples. They're like that. And then we've got all of the different meeples that you can recruit. The clerics, the warriors, the ninjas, the, rogues, I guess, or something like that. The warriors. And I just kind of all got them in this nice well right here. Just kind of, just grab them as you need them out of the game. I've got some of the special meeples in here. Like I see one in here. We got the special. We got the rangers. The shamans, and the can't remember exactly what the purple ones were called. We've got the first player marker, which is kind of like this little wooden dragon meeple. I'm gonna hold that up there. Or if you don't want to use the dragon meeple, you can actually use this nice big old cardboard sword as your first player marker. We've got some tiles here that kind of go along with the Dark Overlords. I'm going to show what those exactly. I believe there's 6 different ones that you can use. Yep, there they are. Got a couple of them are backwards here. And those go to the Dark Overlord, boss, people. Here's our stack of building tiles. Okay, there's a big old stack of them that all do quite a variety of different things here that we'll play with. I kind of got them in their own little well right about there. Little player chits, it's kind of, you know, point markers and other type of markers. What do we got going up in here? We got the cards. Oh, the cards are actually really, they're actually really quite slippery. They got a really kind of like the slippery gloss to them. I don't know if I can get the light on them just right here. If you can see the gloss, I'm not going to be able to see get the glare off them. Ooh, almost right there. Yeah, I'm not going to be, but they are very slippery and they are very shiny. Good, nice quality card here. And so we got they're the purples are the paladins. Okay, and then we got the ranger upgrades, the shaman upgrades, and then we've got mage upgrades, cleric upgrades, knight upgrades, warriors, and some more. I've got them all kind of divvied out. I got some separated out for our 2-player game because we've been playing this a lot at 2-player lately. So I got those ones separated out, and then we've got our I've got my 3+. There you can if you can kind of see it in the dark bottom corner there, it says 3+. I've got the 3+ cards all separated out already. Just because we have been playing this quite a bit at 2-player, so I just thought it would be beneficial to have those ones separated out. And then we've got our deck of monster cards. We've got our Dark Council Arrives, and those are kind of like our timers in the game. They are shuffled in at that setup. They are shuffled into various parts of the monster encounter deck. And after the third one appears, that is what's starting to trigger the end of the game. There's only a couple turns left. And then we've got all of our monsters here in various stages. We've got the level 4 monsters. I can tell that they're level 4 because they got these 4 dots along the side here. They are worth the most amount of right here, they're worth the most amount of points, and they have the most combat strength that's required of them. There's a few of those, and then there's level 3 monsters. Okay, and then there's level 2 monsters. There's a whole bunch of those level 2 monsters, and then there's level 1 monsters that get shuffled up onto the top there. There's a big old stack of those. So this stack currently contains all of the cards that you need in a 2-player game, and that's a big old stack of monster cards that are going to get worked throughout the course of the game, because that's actually an in-game trigger, is when all of the monster cards have been revealed. So I'm going to put those back there. And then finally, the last set of cards here are the quest cards. There's a big stack of quest cards, and there's a whole bunch of different types of quest cards, like immediates, like as soon as you have this, or you meet this condition, that's what this one is. As soon as you meet this condition, you get the points. But if you have this left in your hand at the end of the game, it's worth negative points. There are these green cards that are worth end of game points. So if you have the condition, meeting the conditions of them at the end of the game, you get the points. Other than that, they're worth negative points. And I want to say that, there's an ongoing card where it's like, hey, as soon as at some point in time when you do this, you can defeat that type of, you can kind of fulfill that kind of quest. So yeah, and there's a big stack of these quest cards, and this is where a good source of different points can come from at the end of the game and throughout the game. So that's like all the components. The real big difference between this one and the Kickstarter version, from what I can tell, is that these Meeples would have been screen like this. These are just plain old Meeples, okay, playing back and forth. I believe the Kickstarter version, they were screen printed on them, so they actually had like the warrior kind of sticker attached to them or something like that, or the mage sticker on top of them. So that was, from what I can tell, that's been the real big difference of this between this version and the Kickstarter version. So overall, I'm quite happy with the components here. It's all very functional, but let's get into kind of like the gameplay. Let's get into how this game is played. So I'm going to kind of clean everything up, and then I'm going to come back to the table. I'm going to show you exactly how to play Meeples and Monsters. Okay, well, I've got things kind of set up here for a kind of like a mock run through of Meeples and Monsters. So I'm almost all set up. I've only got one player set up here, but all players that play this game are going to set up the exact same way. And what you're going to do is you're going to have your bag. So in this case, I'm the green player, so I'm going to take the green bag. I'm going to start off with 7 villagers and 3 corruption. And I'm going to toss those into my bag. I'm just going to throw them all in there. And at the very beginning of the game, all players can only just draw 4 meeples out of your bag, and those are going to be your starting 4. So 1, 2, and 3, 4. So I'm going to start off with, I'm going to put this right over here. I'm going to start off with 3 villagers and 1 corruption here in my tavern, and any meeples that are in your tavern can be used throughout your particular turn. The one other thing that we got to make sure that you set up is that you have the stack of building tiles, and that there's always going to be 4 that are available. You got your stack of quest cards, which at the very beginning of the game, each player is going to be dealt 2 of them to be able to go to try to complete. And we got all of our upgrades to our various types of meeples here. And then we've also got our dark overlords over here there, and those really don't come into play until the very end phase of the game, but you can kind of see what you can need to build up for. And then we've got our stack of monster cards, and this stack has been very specially prepared. You're going to have to prepare it just like how it says on the setup page in the manual, because there are a few cards that have been shuffled into here that are referred to as I'm just going to say the Dark Council arrives. Those are the cards you're going to be looking for. So in the level 3 cards, there has been one that's been shuffled into the bottom 2. So one of the last 3 cards will be the 3rd Dark Council card. So and this is describing a 2-player game. Of course, there's been cards that have been removed that are not part of a 2-player game. Within the bottom 8 of the level 2 monsters, there's been another one that's been shuffled in. And in the bottom 4 of the level 1 monster cards, there's been one that's been shuffled in there. Okay, so those have all been prepared. So that's how the deck has been prepared. And before the game starts, you reveal 6 monster cards. There should always be 6 monster cards out onto the main game board. So you reveal them one at a time, and what you're really going to want to look for is you're going to look for the color of the district that monster is attacking. So in this case, this is going to be attacking the yellow district, and he's just going to go over there. He's going to go into the lowest number. And I'm going to reveal another one. This one's going to be in the black district here. And I'm going to reveal another one. This one's going to be in the blue district. 3, and then a 1 in the red district, 1 in the blue district again, and then finally another one in the red district. So then we are going to have 6 monsters that are out there. And the anatomy of a monster card, really it dictates a couple things. Let's just take this one right here. So this one's going to dictate that it is a level 1 monster by saying that there is a one dot down here. It is worth 1 victory point. It is going to need 3 combat strength in order to defeat him. And then this icon right here just kind of dictates what type of monster it is, because there are certain quests that rely on what type of monsters you are defeating. Okay, and then so then that's the anatomy of these cards. So what you are going to do on your turn, and so your turn is developed as pretty much 3 types of phases here. The first phase is kind of what they refer to as the development phase. And the development phase is these middle spots along the game board here. Really early on, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be wanting to build new building spots out onto the board. That's where these things come in for some different types of actions you're going to be able to take. And there's 2 different types of build actions you can do. You can assign 2 villagers to simply just do a build action, or you can assign 1 villager. And if I do the assign 1 villager action, I'm going to gain another villager. Like I just go to the box here, I just go to my baggie here. I grab another villager meeple, put them on that spot here, and then I can also do a build action. And then this guy is going to come with me at the very end of the cleanup round. Everything. So let's just say I did do that. So let's just say I did come here. Okay, I'm going to gain another villager, and I get to do a build action. And the build action just simply is, I can select one of the 4 main available buildings, and I can build it onto one of these for rent spaces. So let's take a look at some of these buildings. So like we have the Warrior's Hut here, which says, hey, to activate this particular tile, I need to assign 2 meeples. I can assign 2 meeples of anything, and I'm going to gain a blue warrior meeple, and I'm also going to get to draw 2 quest cards and discard 1 quest card. So that's actually a pretty good one there. We got the Ranger Academy in this case, where I can assign a, oh gosh, I'm having trouble holding these. I can assign a mage and a warrior, and then I can recruit a green ranger meeple, and it says comes into play with you. There's only going to be 3 green meeples on this building when it first comes into play, and those are the only 3 that you can actually recruit via this particular action. And also this one has the minus sign on it, which also indicates that, hey, at the cleanup phase, I'm going to actually have to remove my blue warrior meeple. That warrior meeple is kind of upgrading into a ranger in this case. We've got the Twig and Branch Tavern, which is, hey, I can assign a mage meeple, and for the rest of the round, all of my cleric meeples are worth 1 extra combat strength. And this one, this is a kind of an interesting tile. It's kind of more of a King of the Hill style tile, whereas, hey, I can assign a warrior or a villager meeple onto this, and then if it gets back around to my turn, and my meeple is still on this tile at the start of my turn, it's going to be worth a victory point if it's a villager, or 3 victory points if it is a warrior meeple. So they're kind of interesting things. I find that these ones are more interesting in a multiplayer game than rather a two. So I have to build a building here. So let's just say, oh, you know what? Let's get that Warrior's Hut going right away, and I can go and I can assign it to one of these spots. So of course, if I cover up one of these spots here, I've got to get to do the benefit where I get to draw 2 quest cards, discard 1 of them. I'm going to gain a mage meeple. I'm going to gain a cleric meeple. I can gain a villager and a warrior meeple. So I can pretty much assign whatever I want to them. So let's just say I'm going to come and I'm going to put it over into this district. Here, I'm covering up that icon of draw 2 quest cards, discard 1. So I just get to take 2 off the top. And then here's the kind of a neat thing too, is that my discard 1, I get to now take a look at all of my quest cards that I have. I started with 2, I draw 2, now I can discard any 1 quest card that I may have. And these quest cards are kind of, they're varying different types. Like I've got 3 instantaneous. As soon as those conditions are met, I can fulfill those quests. And then I also have 1 end of game style quest, where this end of game one says if I only have the scratchy marks and the skull marked monsters in my defeated pile, I can score 6 points. And if I don't meet that, I'm going to lose 1 point. Okay. Or whether I have these instantaneous ones where it says, hey, if I defeat a monster with 2 warrior meeples, hey, I'm going to score 2 points, and then I'm also going to get to recruit a cleric. All right. So I get to draw 2, and I'm going to discard 1. You know what? I'm going to say, I'm going to discard this guy off to the side there. And so then now I have my 3 quest cards. Okay, so then that is the development phase. And now I get to go into my actual action phase, where I get to use the rest of my meeples here, and I can take a action. Now, actions can be any tiles that have been built that particular turn. So this one that I built on my turn, I can now use that particular action if I want to. Or there are already 4 pre-printed actions on the board as well. So 2 meeples get you a red cleric. 3 meeples. One of them has to be a white villager. Can get you a warrior meeple. Any 1 meeple can get you a mage, and then any villager and warrior will get you a knight meeple. So it's like, and then there are some of them that are required to lose a particular meeple in order to, fulfill that particular action. So let's just say, I'm going to gain, I'm going to assign these 2 guys here. I'm going to assign these 2 meeples here to get myself a, what do they call them? Clerics, like that. And that would be my turn. And of course, these corruption ones, they don't do anything. They kind of just clog up your bag. And now it's turned into my cleanup phase, where my cleanup phase now is anybody that's left in my tavern goes over to my lodge. Anybody that's that I've used up on the board and that I've gained are all going to now come into my lodge. I check to see if I've defeated any monsters. I haven't defeated any monsters this particular turn. If I did, I would have to draw back up. And then I have to then draw. And then it becomes my draw phase. I have to draw 4 more meeples. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there. And then play will pass on to the next player. And they will start with their development phase. So it's kind of an interesting worker placement style game, as in the worker placement spots don't get blocked by anybody. So all of these spots are now open on a next player's turn. So let's say now it comes back around to our turn. We can now start off with the development phase. So I can build another build. Oh, I forgot to refresh my buildings. So I should always have 4 available buildings. So let's just say this one I'm going to skip. I'm going to skip the development phase. I'm going to go straight into my action phase, and I'm going to go and I want to defeat a monster. I have 3 villagers here and 1 corruption. And right now, all of my villagers have a combat strength of 1. So let's just say I'm going to take these 3 guys, and they're going to come over here, and they are going to try to defeat this this spider or termite or something, whatever it's called here. And that's all you do to do the combat. And now when I resolve it, I have my 3 combat. I only need 3 combat strength to defeat it. So then I automatically defeat that particular monster. These guys all at my cleanup phase, all these meeples are going to come over into my lodgings. This guy is going to go into my defeated pile. He is worth 1 victory point, as in the banner right here. So I can move my victory point marker up 1 space. And immediately I get a benefit that I get to recruit a blue warrior. And he goes straight into my lodgings. And then he comes into I can have just a little defeated pile right off to the side of my thing. And then in my draw phase, I got to make sure that I'm going to now draw back up to 4 meeples. So this corruption meeple comes over. I see in my bag here, I only have 2 meeples left, and I have to draw up to 4. So all the rest of these guys are now going to go back into my bag. I'm going to shuffle it all up, and I'm going to have to draw 2 meeples, just like that. I also make sure that there's 4 buildings available, and now I also have to check to see that there's 6 monsters. Now I defeated a monster. There's only 5 out here, so I'm going to have to draw another monster. And this says it's going to go into the yellow district right there. Okay, play goes around, comes back to our turn. This is our what is this? Our turn. We're into our development phase. And you know what? In my development phase here, I am now going to decide, hey, I'm going to take this particular red cleric meeple, and I'm going to upgrade him. Now, upgrading is part of the development phase, and that's where this little area comes into play. I can upgrade 1 particular type, and let's just say I'm going to upgrade my red meeple here. And I'm going to be upgrading him into a level 2 meeple, because I'm already currently just a level 1. I'm going to... And now, right beside the level, you see printed on the board here, it says level 2, 0, level 3, 3. The 0 and the 3 here are victory points that you have to spend in order to upgrade him. And now I can do this early on because my red meeple upgrading to a level 2 is going to cost me 0 victory points. So I can upgrade him. So I can take the upgrade card for him onto the level 2 side. And I'm going to be able to place it right here over top of my level 1. Now, this level 2 meeple, he comes now with a bonus. Now, during the development phase, if I have any red cleric meeples and 1 or more corruption in my tavern, I'm going to actually get to draw an extra meeple at the very beginning of my development phase, which is actually pretty handy, drawing some extra meeples. And I'm going to go, and then it's back, and now it's back to my, my action phase here. And you know what? I'm going to take these 2 meeples here, and I am going to say I am going to defeat this skeleton monster over here. Kind of like that. Or maybe I want to get some more meeples. Maybe I want to, actually, you know what? That's probably a good idea. Let's get ourselves a mage meeple. And then I can't really do anything with this one lonely white meeple and a corruption, so they're going to go to my lodgings. This red meeple is going to come back. I'm going to gain these 2 guys back. No buildings were built. No monsters were defeated. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Draw 4 more meeples. There we go. Now, I'm going to start setting things up here. I'm going to do a couple extra things. I'm going to say this came out, and with the 3 green meeples on it, I'm just going to put them there like that. Let's just say, because it now comes to my action phase here, and I really want to, let's just say I'm just going to kind of set up a situation here. Let's just say I had this situation of my tavern. Say I had this situation in my tavern, and I want to come and recruit one of these ranger meeples here. And I can do that because now I have a yellow mage and a blue warrior, so I can assign those to that particular tile. And I'm going to gain one of these rangers. But I also have to pay attention to it because in this district's being overrun by monsters. And how do I know it's being overrun? Is that I see there's a monster in this particular district, and it has this plus villager meeple. So that means if I'm going to activate one of these buildings in this district, it's also going to come at a cost, and I'm also going to gain one of these villager meeples, which is kind of they kind of clog up your bag. They don't do an extra lot. So if I don't deal with that monster, I'm going to gain an extra white villager meeple. Now I can get around that this turn by actually using my remaining 2 meeples, and I can defeat that monster, because I can defeat that monster before I actually resolve this particular tile. And if I defeat that monster, this section of the town is no longer overrun, and now I can resolve that building without actually gaining an extra villager meeple, which is kind of a neat way. So I can resolve that, gain a point, get some more quest cards, and then I can also gain my ranger. Okay. So yeah, play is going to continue like this, and then eventually we're going to get to monsters. We're going to keep going until, the first Dark Council is going to appear. And after the first Dark Council appears, we're all going to gain, I'm going to hold this up to the camera here. We're all going to gain an extra corruption into our bags, but now we can always draw 1 extra meeple in the draw phase. So after this card appears, now we're drawing 5 meeples out of our bag for the rest of the game. And yeah, and then those monsters are going to be a little bit better. And these ones are also, now I'm going to kind of highlight a couple of these monsters, because these monsters, when you defeat them, are going to give you some extra little bonuses at the bottom. So this one here, if I defeat them, I don't get an immediate benefit like in the side of the banner, but rather I'm going to get an upgrade. And this upgrade says, hey, if I assign a red cleric meeple with a blue warrior meeple, my red cleric meeples are worth an extra combat point. And to remind me of that, I can actually take this and I can actually slide it under. I ran out of room on my camera, but I can actually slide this underneath my player board here to remind me that, hey, my red warrior meeples my red cleric meeples are worth an extra combat point with those blue warriors. And there's other different combinations, like this one says the yellow mage meeples are boosted in combat if they are with warriors. Other ones here, this one just always your yellow warrior meeples are 1 extra combat strength. So then you can maybe start comboing them together. If I defeated 2 of these together and I have these stacked underneath my mages, now my mages are worth an extra 2 combat, 1 guaranteed, and then an extra 1 if they're paired with a blue. So you can see that now they're going to start gaining extra strengths, and there's going to be lots more. See, I can see there's a lot more different variations of these. You can gain extra combat strengths. And then there's like some other ones here where you have to actually lose they're worth lots of victory points, but they're going to have to cost you a quest card. And there's just so many different types of monsters inside of this deck of cards, and they can all boost your guys. And you kind of want to try to boost as many of your guys because you really want big combat strengths at the very end of the game, because when that 3rd Dark Council Arrives card comes out, then it's going to be every player is just going to continue back to the first player, and then continuing on from the first player, everybody's going to get 2 more turns. And part of those 2 last turns, that's where these guys come into play, where you can actually assign your meeples to defeat these guys. And these guys require lots of... Let's take a look at this one, for example. This one requires a combat strength of 12 to defeat. It's worth 6 victory points. 1 victory... but it's only worth 1 victory point if no yellow mage meeples are assigned to it. So there's that piece. And then also below him, these tiles were randomly distributed at the very beginning of the game, and they kind of give you extra points. Like this one says it's worth 3 extra victory points if you have 3 or more corruption in your lodgings when you defeat this particular monster. So you want your corruption in your lodgings when you defeat this guy to get him some extra victory points. Now, part of these last 2 turns, if you do decide to defeat one of these big bads, you can only defeat 1 big bad at a time. And to show that you've already defeated a big bad, you can take one of your player markers here and say, hey, I've already defeated this guy. I can put one of my player markers on him to show that I've already defeated him, so I can't defeat him on another subsequent turn. And of course, play is going to continue on this, and then the game is going to be over once you've done those last final couple turns. And then you are going to add up all of your victory. You've been gaining victory points all along the way by defeating these monsters and completing some quests. And then all of a sudden at the end of the game here, you are going to reveal your end of game, any end of the game quests to gain some extra victory points. And that will be the end of the game. And whoever has the most victory points will be the winner of Meeples and Monsters. All right, so join me back at the studio, and I am going to kind of give you my rundown and final thoughts about Meeples and Monsters. Okay, well, there is Meeples and Monsters, published by AEG Games. What a nifty little game that has come, really kind of took me by surprise here of how decent of gameplay there was here. Now, I am talking about the retail edition, and apparently there was a Kickstarter edition that kind of, added a little bit more jazz to the box, where all of those, plain old colored meeples had actual screen printed or silk screened, or maybe even just they were stickers. I don't know exactly what they were, but kind of gave the meeples a little bit of, life to them, kind of gave them the picture of what they were actually representing, whether they were a knight or a cleric or a mage or a warrior or a peasant on them. I guess that would kind of like immerse you a little bit more into this game. But my gosh, do you not need that one to enjoy what's going on inside of this box? I took a look at the components. The components of this game are minimal, and that works in this game's favor, because really we're really focusing on, if they had little screen prints, I'm not actually going to be paying attention mostly to those ones. I'm just going to be worried about, hey, did I get a red meeple? Did I get a yellow one? Did I get a blue one? I'm not really looking at who I actually drew out of the bag, because it's going to be the colors that dictate what you're going to be doing and what you can be doing across this particular game. Let's get into the gameplay things, because this kind of has a few interesting things going on it. It's a bag builder, and I do really enjoy bag building games. Orleans, one of my favorite games of all time, and the Quacks of Quedlinburg, also one of my favorite games. And this one kind of fits right in there with those styles of games where you're going to be recruiting all these meeples. They're going to be going into your bag. You're going to be drawing them out, and whatever you've drawn, that's what you get to use for that particular turn. And this game kind of also, I kind of attribute that has a little bit of a Lords of Waterdeep thing to it, where there are some buildings that can be constructed into the main board area, and those buildings are available for all players to be able to use it. And this kind of goes by that there's a couple different phases of this game. Early on, those buildings are going to get built out onto the board, and there's only room for 8 buildings. There's a big old stack of tiles. Can't remember exactly how many there are in there, but only 8 buildings are actually going to go out into the central board area. So every game is going to be a little bit different depending on the order of those tiles come out and what players actually choose to actually go into the town. That's going to dictate a whole bunch of different, that's going to dictate the different strategies that are happening inside of this game. Now, after all of those buildings are built down, now you're really not going to be taking that many development actions. Actually, after that part is done, what players are probably going to focus on in the development phase will most likely be to upgrade their kind of like their specialty meeples, your mages, your clerics, your warriors. There's the upgrade action that you can be able to take, and plus after, you're not going to be doing that very much anymore, because that's going to cost you victory points. The shift is going to now be using those buildings to defeat all of the monsters that are out there amongst the on board. So there's kind of like the phase where you're going to be rush building these buildings, and then you're going to, once somebody starts clicking and somebody turns the gear and says they're going to start defeating monsters, well, I think other players also have to choose that path of also starting to do their monsters and less upgrading and start defeating the monsters, because, well, that's where a bulk of the points are going to come throughout the rest of this game, is completing the quests. And lots of quests dictate that I need to defeat a monster with a certain set of meeples. I'm going to get some bonus points. Or if I have these certain meeples in my tavern during my draw phase, I'm going to get a bonus. And then I'm also collecting some of those end of game quest cards where it says, hey, have these certain monsters in your discard pile, or have the most of this certain monster type in your discard pile, or a whole schwackload of different things going on. So you kind of have the building phase, and then you're going to be rushing, building, and defeating those monsters. And that's the game timer, is defeating that stack, that massive stack of monster cards, because that's also going to dictate the pace where those Dark Council Arrive cards are going to be coming into play. And those also, give you a little extra corruption to your bag, but also allows you to draw more meeples, so that you can defeat those higher leveled monsters. They have higher combat strengths, which hopefully you've been upgrading your people along the way, defeating some monsters, and monsters upgrade your guys to allow them to do some extra combat damage. Oh my goodness gracious. Lots of little things going on in such a small package. It's not a small box. It's kind of like your Ticket to Ride size game. But there's not a lot going on here. Like, I know it does take up a little bit of my table space, but man, does this game pack a wallop in the, what is it advertised, 45 to 60 minute gameplay. Because the turns are snappy. their turns are quick. There's not a lot of downtime in between, because you're only going to have, well, at most, because of the Dark Council cards, at most you're going to have 6 Meeples. There are some upgrades that allow you to draw some extra ones during your development phase. But man, and then once those monsters start flying, oh man, then the game really starts clicking along really, really nicely. We have had a lot of fun with this one, and I've been playing it mostly at 2-player. I have played 1 3-player game with my we included our son in that game, and he was able to grasp what we were supposed to be able to do, like by around like the third, the halfway to the 2/3 mark of the game. He was really starting to understand what was actually supposed to be going on, and he's only 6, turning 7 this summer, so let that speak to what he doesn't understand the text on the cards. We had to explain a little bit, but once he kind of understood that, then things were going well. One of the things that didn't really work well in the 2-player games were the King of the Hill style tiles, where it's like, hey, if I have my meeple still there at the beginning of my turn, I'm going to get some points. Or there was another one in there that I think it allows you to draw some extra meeples. Whoever did go there ended up, getting their benefit, because so it just so happens that maybe the other player did not draw into their tavern the meeple to bump out that particular, the one particular meeple style, or they did draw. They obviously, you had your white peasant meeples, and you don't get a great benefit by having that person in there. So there was really no worth it to try to bump people out. So in the 2-player game, it wasn't. I would say more in the 3 and 4-player games, those King of the Hill style tiles would be a little bit more interesting in trying to take advantage of it. Just quite oftentimes, you probably won't be left on that tile, and they'll just kind of circle and circle and circle. Let's take a look at, what do I want to take a look at now here? The monsters. There is a good variety of monsters in this game, but they are quite repetitive. Quite a bit. Like the same style, the same types of monsters do appear quite a bit, and they all kind of give you the same bonuses. The bonuses for defeating the monsters aren't quite varied a lot, and they do range in the victory points, which is kind of nice. But there's not a lot of variety in the different types of monsters. But it's those Dark Council, the Overlord monsters, but that was kind of weird that you're only allowed to attack those particulars in like the final 2 turns, or as soon as that final Dark Council arrives, which is like toward the very, very end of the game. And of course, when that one arrives, every player gets only 2 more turns in order to defeat those ones. I know we're kind of building to a crescendo, or we're building to this ultimate climax of these big bads, and I've got all this pile of meeples, and they're all buffed up. Now I can go out and defeat them. I just wish there were kind of like there's kind of more of those epic moments throughout the game, other than right there at the very end. Maybe that's a little quabble by me and everything like that, but and you can see what you're building towards, like the bonuses and everything that there are already there from the beginning of the game, so you can kind of build towards that. But we didn't really pay attention to what the bonuses or how the bonuses are scored until those. We're like, oh, do I actually have those things? Oh, I do have those things, so I can defeat this particular big bad guy at the end. So we weren't actually paying attention to that a lot throughout the whole course of the game until that actually came to play. Determining what the level of monster was. Now, I believe there's a little bit of different shading on the different levels of monsters. Like there's the lighter colors are like the level 1s. Then a little bit darker is 2s, a little bit darker is 3s. And there are these circles, though they weren't very well prominent in our first few games, when we're just like, what level of monster is this again? How do I tell what a level monster is? And I guess it's dictated by those circles that are on the side. And those weren't well, like, they weren't a prominent feature of the card of what you were looking for. So it's kind of when we're looking at quest cards, as I say, make sure you have to defeat a level 2 or higher monster. It was hard early on to determine which one was a level 2, which one was a level 1 in those regards. So maybe a little quibble there. One other thing I have is the kind of like the insert of this box is, less than desirable to fit all of these bags and these boards and all of the meeples and the tiles. Especially if they plan on expanding the content, which AEG likes to do with some of their games, is expand the content. We're gonna probably need something a little bit more functional in the future here. We'll probably have to make a custom design or anything like that, but otherwise it kind of does its semi does its job right now. The player boards are kind of nice. They're really functional. They're a little big, but I kind of see exactly what they were trying to do with those ones, especially laying out the cards for your and upgrading your characters. That's another big thing. The upgrading of the characters is a big part of your strategy in this game. Now, you're not going to be able to upgrade everybody to like their ultimate level 3. You're going to have to pick and choose a few, and some of them are more specialized. Like I'm trying to look at here, the mages allow you to draw extra quest cards if you do not use if you don't use mages and you just kind of slide them over into your lodgings. You can get extra quest cards. The clerics allow you to draw extra meeples at the beginning of the turn. The knights, they allow you to, they have better combat values. As do the warriors, and actually the warriors will allow you to bring people from your lodgings into a combat. So upgrading your meeples do play a big part in how you're going to actually play and defeat the monsters, which is actually really quite neat, and you can focus on a little bit of something different every game. And then there's the special ones. There's the rangers, the paladins, and the shamans, and they each do their own special thing. Like the rangers get you extra victory points during their particular combats, and they have a high combat value. The paladins, or was I talking about the paladins? The paladins do something a little bit extra different. I don't exactly remember right now off the top of my head. The shamans, I know, those ones act as a wild card. They act as a shaman, and they can also act as one of the other meeple types that you also have in front of you. Oh, the paladins, right. The paladins increase their combat strength depending on which level of monster they are attacking. So a level 3 monster, that paladin's going to get an extra combat value of a bonus of 3 during that particular combat. So they're all quite neat, and those ones aren't always going to come into play. It's all going to be there. There's one building tile for each of them in that big old stack. So maybe 2 of them will come out, and there's only certain quests that will allow you to recruit a certain style of one of these meeples. So those don't always come into play, but when they do, they kind of really alter what you can actually do for combats and when you're assigning your meeples and whatnot. So they do really change up what you can do turn to turn. Okay, so let's give my kind of like my final thoughts here of like, who am I recommending this game for? Do I recommend this game? And this is a very nice family-styled weight of a game. Now, the rule book makes it seem like it's a really heavy, complicated game. There's lots of text, lots of description of what's going on here. But once you get into the flow of the game, the turns are actually very, very simple. Development phase. Are you building? Are you upgrading? Okay, now it's the action phase. Are you defeating monsters, or are you gaining more meeples? And then it's your cleanup phase and drawing up and back up your meeples. That's your turn, essentially, like that. And you're going to just do that over and over again. And then it's just going to be in the intricacies of boosting the meeples and defeating monsters and getting some bonuses after that. There is a lot of different people that can play this style of game. You can play this with children. You can play this with teenagers. You can play this with adults. I would say that if somebody is more accustomed to, like, say, already well versed in a game like Orleans or the Quacks of Quedlinburg, they're going to find this game quite a bit lighter than those particular games. I would probably maybe put this in the kind of like the realm of like a Quacks of Quedlinburg weight level or complexity level is what I probably should more like say. Maybe even just a slight step lighter than the Quacks of Quedlinburg. So this is actually going to reach the audience of this game could be very, very vast. Is this going to be a main feature of an evening? Like it very well could be, or this game could actually, if the play length was a little bit shorter, than that 45 to 60 minutes, this could definitely be one of those like, hey, let's open up the game night or let's close the game night with this one. But it does have that little bit of a time. Like it does sometimes feel like this game is dragging on a little bit because you have to get through that big stack of monster cards, and that's going to take time. And if people are not fighting monsters turn to turn, the game is going to drag on a little bit. So that's why it does last 45, 60 minutes. And that's if, you do change gears and you start defeating the monsters on a regular basis, turn to turn. All right. And less about gaining more meeples and upgrading your meeples and start defeating the monsters. If the group is not defeating the monsters, this game is going to take a long time to play. So that was kind of a roundabout way of saying, yeah, I don't know if this is a main feature of the evening. It very well could be, but it does have that chance of overstaying its welcome, but only on that caveat that it only overstays its welcome if nobody's defeating the monsters. That's the only reason why it's going to stay and drag on. But a very vast amount of different players are going to play. I have been having fun with this one. It's light enough that fits into our wheelhouse, that we can pull this out, we can set it up. We don't actually have to refer to any of the rules. We have the icon page on the back of the rule book that helps us out with any of the things that we don't remember or haven't seen yet in a game. We can pull it out, set it up, and get going quite quickly nowadays. So I am recommending checking out Meeples and Monsters. Is it going to have the longevity? I can definitely see that this game could probably start overstaying its welcome in a collection. This is not the game that you're probably going to knock out about like 10 to 15 plays right away, and then you'll be like, you know what, I'm good. I got my value out of it, and now it's only going to come out every couple months, maybe once a month type of thing. You are going to see all those different quests and you're definitely going to see all the monsters. The monsters don't really change game to game. So it's going to start feeling a little samey unless if you try to diversify your strategies from those buildings that are going to come out. But I would say after about 10 to 15 plays, you're going to probably see everything that this game has to offer, probably maybe even sooner than that, depending on your different play styles. So I'm definitely saying you should check it out. It has a lot of fun, and it has that bag building mechanism that I really, really enjoy. But it has the chance of leaving my collection in the future here, just because things are feeling a little samey at this point. We've probably played it about 8 times, almost 10 times. I have to look at my BG stats to say how many times, but it is starting to feel samey at this particular point. So maybe some expansion content is going to change that for me, or maybe I could go pick up the Towers expansion. I heard it has a solo mode that you can also see. That was in part of the Kickstarter version. I'm interested in seeing what that's all about. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on Meeples and Monsters. This is getting a thumbs up from me. Go check it out. All right, folks. So I've been Ryan, Mr. Rouse Gaming Rants and Reviews, and if you've been enjoying the content on this channel, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so when you get notified when new videos are arriving, and drop a comment in the description of this video. Are you interested in checking out Meeples and Monsters? Have you already played Meeples and Monsters? Give me your thoughts on what this game is looking like for you at this moment in time. All right, so I am going to officially close this video by saying this review is officially over.